G'day folks, first video of 2020 and so I think it's the 3rd of January today. Here in Australia, a lot of smoke around. Hope it doesn't affect the lighting of this video too badly. I wanted to talk today about some information regarding the two birth certificates that exist and information that I've come across from the gentleman who has made most people aware that there's a second birth certificate, and that's Romley Stewart. And it's, in some ways, it's a critique of Romley Stewart because I believe he should have made this information absolutely clear when he first presented his video on the second birth certificate. Now, I'll just give you some terminology for those who may not be familiar with it, that I'm going to use anyway. So I'm going to refer to the first birth certificate, which I'm also going to call the surname birth certificate, and that is the birth certificate that nearly everyone in the world has. Okay, it's got your surname on it, and the one I have, the surname is written in all capital letters. All right, and most people will find that the surname on theirs is written in all capital letters. The Christian name, however, isn't written in all capital letters, and that's a key. And if you know Romley Stewart's research, you'll know that it is a key. Now, the second birth, and Romley calls that the Debtor birth certificate, but I might touch on that term occasionally, but I'm not going. That's not the term I'm going to use. Now, Romley then obtained a second birth certificate, which is in many ways wholly different from the first. And the way he did this was he applied for a birth certificate giving his Christian name only and giving the date of birth as the date on which the first birth certificate, the surname birth certificate, is registered. So if you look at the first birth certificate, you'll see that there's the registration date on there, the date of registration, which is anything from a few days to a month after the physical date of birth. So he gave that registration date plus his Christian name and obtained this Christian name birth certificate, or second birth certificate. Now, I'll put up on the screen now a link to a video on YouTube on a third-party channel, not on my channel, not on Romley's channel, where Romley starts a conversation with someone, and I sort of pick up on something that he says in this conversation and bring it to and query him on it and get a confirmation from him on it. Now, I'll just put that up there on the screen while I'm talking. I won't read it all because it'll take too long, and I'm trying to keep this down to 15 minutes so I can put it on YouTube. What Romley identifies there, which he never identified to my knowledge at any time previous, is that this second birth certificate that he's obtained, the Christian name birth certificate, what he confirms in this back and forth of commentary is that the Christian name on this Christian name birth certificate is styled in all capital letters. Now, given that anyone who's familiar with Romley's research will know that the thing that he has shown, and I believe has proven conclusively, is that a word that is otherwise English but has been styled in all capital letters is in fact not English. It is not part of the English language. It's a separate language. And I agree with his research there, and I think that's been proven conclusively. Now, given that, I would have thought that it was absolutely critical for someone like Romley to identify clearly for his audience that this second birth certificate, the Christian name birth certificate, has the Christian name styled in all capital letters. Because as the Christian name on the surname birth certificate, the first birth certificate, is not styled in all capital letters, the presumption would be, and has been by me and I would believe others, that the Christian name on the second birth certificate appears in proper English, that is not fully capitalised. The fact that it is fully capitalised is a key piece of information, which I think really, and I probably am a bit critical of Romley here, he should have made his audience aware of. Now, Romley then goes on to make assertions about what these two birth certificates represent. And I'm not saying that his assertions are incorrect. I just would say that he's presented no evidence to support those assertions. And I'm aware of other research into legal matters where he may have drawn these conclusions, but I don't think there's any evidence to support it. So what he says is that the first birth certificate, the surname birth certificate, is a debtor's certificate or debtor's title, and the second birth certificate is the Christian name birth certificate is a creditor's title, and that you want to be the creditor, and that these two titles are drawn from a trust. So there's one trust, and you're the debtor if you use of that trust, if you use the debtor's birth certificate, or you're the creditor if you use the creditor's birth certificate. I would like to suggest, I would now like to suggest something quite different from what Romley's suggesting. First and foremost, because, as I said, I'm not saying there's no debtor and creditor roles in this trust that Romley's talking about. What I'm saying is I see no evidence for that. And I can tell you that debtor and creditor are not roles that are found in a trust. They're roles that are found in every commercial transaction, but they're not roles that are intrinsic to the existence of a trust. The intrinsic roles that exist in a trust are that of the grantor, that of the trustee, and that of the beneficiary. Now, you could construct an argument possibly that the trustee is the debtor and the beneficiary is the creditor, but I don't see that there's a natural conclusion that that's the case. And if what I think Romley needs to do is to draw the links where he gets from the two birth certificates to one of them being a debtor and one of them being a creditor, because to my mind nothing he's presented so far has done that. So it's an unsubstantiated theory, I would say. Well, I have a unsubstantiated theory of my own, but it's not completely unsubstantiated. So this is what I'd like to suggest. The surname birth certificate, the first birth certificate, the one that has the surname in all capital letters but not the Christian name. I want to suggest that that document doesn't create anything, or not what Romley's suggesting it creates. Why? If we use the name John Henry Doe, where Doe is the surname, in the birth certificate that you get by giving your full legal name, including surname, and giving your physical date of birth, Doe, it would be capitalised on that birth certificate. Well, that indicates to me, and I've done plenty of videos to get to the point where I've made this conclusion, and you can watch those to know. I'm not going to go through all that information again. When a name is fully capitalised, my ultimate conclusion is that evidences the existence of a corporation. Now, that would mean to me then that the standard birth certificate, the surname birth certificate, evidences the existence of a trust that is in the surname. And I would suggest that that trust has pre-existed your birth, your physical birth. Why? Well, it's a name shared by siblings, mother and father, grandmother and grandfather, going all the way back to when your family first took a surname. So, and if you know anything about corporations, one characteristic they have is that they can exist in perpetuity. For example, the British monarch is known as a corporation soul, and whilst the current Queen will one day die and be replaced, the monarchy will not die with her and be replaced. The monarchy has continued pretty much unbroken. You could argue that with the execution of Charles I it was broken for a while. But the monarchy is a corporation soul that's existed since probably William the Conqueror. in 1066. So the monarchy hasn't ever died. It's the same monarchy. The people who fulfil the role have changed. And I would like to suggest that that's probably what's happening with your surname, is that your surname is the name of a corporation, and the people who fulfil roles and functions within that corporation change as people are born and die. But the corporation itself has existed in perpetuity. And I guess I'd suggest probably that your the surname birth certificate is evidencing your membership to that corporation. You've become a member of the corporation, and you now have certain rights and obligations to that corporation, rights drawn from it and obligations to it, and because of it. Now, the Christian name birth certificate, the second birth certificate, that is a new, that I would suggest is the creation of a new entity, because your Christian name didn't exist until your physical birth and until you were given that name. So the second birth certificate is the creation of a new entity. And again, because it's in all capitals, and this is where I've drawn away from what Romley's saying about the debtor and creditor, the fact that second, the Christian name birth certificate renders your Christian name in all capital letters, says to me that that is another corporation. That is not you, the living flesh and blood being. That is you, that is a corporation in the same name as your living flesh and blood being. So I'm suggesting that rather than the surname birth certificate being the debtor and the Christian name birth certificate being the creditor of one trust, I'm suggesting that there are at least two trusts operating here that we can identify. The first trust has been in operation probably for hundreds of years, or perhaps when I say trust, perhaps corporation style is a better term for it, and it exists in perpetuity and continues on as long as the family continues on, and there's someone in the family that bears that name and is acting as a representative of the Doe corporation. The Christian name trust is a new corporation, and it's distinct and separate. There may be some interactions between the two, but it's a distinct and separate entity, which is why it has a distinct and separate date of birth, and is why it has a distinct and separate name. Now, that's what I want to suggest. I'm not saying I've got absolutely conclusive evidence, but I think that's an avenue of research for people to, a rabbit hole, for example, for people to go down. Because I am convinced, based on the research I've done, and you can see, and it's solid research, it's got all the evidence there for it, that anytime you see a name written in all capital letters, that is evidence and is identifying the existence of a corporation. I'm 99.9% on that, and I'm a man who's never 100% on anything. Okay? So I'm as certain as I can be that whenever you see a name written in all capital letters, that evidences the existence of a corporation. So if the Christian name birth certificate is in all capital letters, it's evidencing the existence of a corporation, and that is distinct and different from the surname corporation on the standard or surname birth certificate. I'll leave it there because I'm going to hit the 15-minute mark, and I'll take this up in the next video. See you, folks.